Yet again, another year and another 5 years would have elapsed, and we are on the cusp of another general election. And pertinent to the discourse around this election is the Tobago autonomy issue. And we are going to take a conversation this morning toward the discussing two books released or about to be released by Miss Ingrid Melville surrounding the Tobago autonomy issue. So, Mr. Natalya and I will be conducting this interview this morning with Miss Melville, for which we are grateful for being a part of our platform this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Dwayne and Natalie, and good morning to your viewers and listeners. It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
It better be.
It's a pleasure to have you, Miss Melville.
Splendiferous. You look splendiferous, man.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Melville. I hope you don't mind. She's a country girl. I wouldn't say where. She's one of the Tobago's brightest. She's an attorney at law, etc. But I'll leave the rest for her to share with her viewers who may not know who she is.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. I think everyone knows me or know about me. I'm Ingrid Melville from Delaford, and I'm an attorney at law, have been for quite some time. I have worked in different countries, but Tobago is my home. I love Tobago, and I want everyone to love Tobago. And I think it is out of that I wrote these two books, which have to do with the Tobago autonomy question, because for Tobago to grow and to develop, the issue of autonomy must be resolved. And it is an ongoing conversation, has been for several decades. Since I was a child, I remember the first time I heard about it, I was at Ebenezer Methodist School, and that was when Mr. Robinson was going around. Later, when I was at Bishop's High School, I also heard about the issue of internal self-government. And when I grew up and I decided to study law to be able not to defend criminals, but really because I understood that the law was the foundation of any society. And so I wanted to be able to play a meaningful role in making Tobago a better place.
And meaningful you have, because it is my understanding that you have been in several incarnations of conversations surrounding the Tobago autonomy issue. You want to shed some light on that?
I have been. I think my active participation started back in the 1990s while I was an intern at the office of Mrs. Deborah Moore Miggins. Mrs. Miggins, as you know, was a government senator, and at that time, the bills were before the parliament, the draft bills, and so she shared them and we would have discussions about them. Later on, when I came back in 2012, I came back from overseas and the green paper was on the table and there was the committee which was set up by Mr. Orville London. I attended one of the public meetings and shared my view, and from there I was kind of roped in to be one of the advisors of that committee. And I sat in that committee, which was the forum of political parties. I wanted to get the right term, where all political parties in Tobago came together to look at the autonomy question and to look at what the best model would be for Tobago. I was one of the advisors together with Mr. Gilbert Peterson, and out of that we sent a draft bill down to Trinidad. The draft bill was actually laid before the House, the Tobago House of Assembly, in 2016, and it was sent to Trinidad. Later on, the administration changed. Mr. Kelvin Charles became Chief Secretary. He continued the discussions and revisions were made to the bill, because by 2017 into 2018, then Prime Minister Rowley, I have to say then Prime Minister Rowley because he's no longer the Prime Minister, he set up a committee comprising Minister Fitzgerald Hines and Camille Robinson Regis, and they came and had meetings with the forum to look at the bill which was sent in 2016 to see whether it still met the needs of Tobago. So revisions were made, and in 2018, another iteration of the bill was again drafted by Mr. Peterson and I and sent down to Trinidad. And from there, Dr. Rowley laid the bill in Parliament, and the bill was sent to a joint select committee. The joint select committee had several meetings. I participated in some of the meetings, and the issue rolled along until the joint select committee came up with 2 bills which were taken to the Parliament, and the rest is history. December last year, one of the bills failed, one was passed in the lower house.
Right. So based on this information, Dwayne, she's very much informed on Tobago's should be autonomy, what should I say, right? So we know that she's the author of 2 books now to share this information with you. So what inspired you to write these books? I mean, we heard a lot, but what actually inspired you to put that information for the adults and for the children?
All right. The adult book I started writing quite some time ago. You know, as I participated in the different discussions, I wrote the adult book. Back in 2021, I had a draft book. I shared that with certain persons, but I did not publish. But the information last year, there was so much information in the public space, and some of it was not accurate. So I really would like all of us in Trinidad and Tobago to have an accurate picture of the road to autonomy until now, on what the requirements are for autonomy as advanced by the people of Tobago. And I want everyone to be able to participate in the conversation from a standpoint of knowledge, not emotions. So in this book, I have condensed the information. I have also put the historical perspective so that there is a chronology, a brief chronology of the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago and the political dynamics between Trinidad and Tobago, leading right down to 2024.
Yeah.
All right. So we know that there's an adult book and the children book. So you're saying that you want us to come from a standpoint of knowledge.
Yeah.
In terms of the children, what is the goal for the children, shaping the young minds of the child?
I noticed that our children, and I'm a mother myself, and I've noticed that children look, because of the global village we live in, there seems to be less patriotism, less love for Tobago the way I loved Tobago as a child, the way I always wanted this place to be better. And in conversations with my own children as well as other children and young people, I recognized that information that I thought all children knew, like who was the first Chief Secretary of Tobago, who was the first chairman of the Tobago House of Assembly when the Tobago House of Assembly was reconstituted in 1980. Our children do not know that, and it's not really a part of our social studies curriculum. And I also note that between Trinidad and Tobago, the question of autonomy for Tobago is concentrated in Tobago. So that is why I developed a child called Kayla. Kayla, I use the acronym, the keen and the young lead all. Our children are not just children, they are present and future leaders. And we have to guide them in their development. So Kayla is a girl who lives in Trinidad, but her paternal relatives are in Tobago. And I use the air bridge. If you notice in this book, there are pictures of the ferry, the airport, the link between Trinidad and Tobago. The physical link is there, but also the link of our relationships, because all of us have relatives in Trinidad and in Tobago. So Kayla visits her grandfather in Tobago, and her grandfather speaks about the autonomy issue. Her grandfather, being older, has lived through all the various iterations from the 1970s right up to 2024. And that really is what Kayla is about. It's about telling our children that the issue of autonomy is not for adults. It's something for you as children. It's something for you to aspire to. Because if the legal question is resolved, then you would have a framework on which to build magnificent lives. And so Kayla, through play and through activities, because there's an activity section as well, children would be able to learn more about those whose shoulders we stand on regarding the question of Tobago autonomy.
I think my biggest question to this one is not if I should buy the book, but which version of the book I should buy. I'm leaning towards Kayla. I want to hear what Kayla's grandpa has to say.
Right. And you know, that would be very good for you, Miss Nancis. Very, very good for you.
And Kayla's story is supported by an artist. I cannot forget Zwinky Star. Zwinky Star is a young Tobagonian artist. I shared the story with Zwinky Star. I don't think she was really impressed by me telling the story, but when the artwork comes together and combines with the story, I think it is very attractive for children, and all the people who have read it, I've shared it with teachers and they have looked at it and they all become excited. And there are a number of people who have supported me in the development of this book besides Winky Star, including practicing teachers who have shared how the story could be slanted so that they could have discussions with their children in the classroom.
I love that really idea. Yeah, because I think the last discussion surrounding the bills that were to be passed, a lot of people were, I would say, misinformed on the information that they were supposed to have, you know, why we should lean toward it, or, you know, they were sharing their opinion on why we shouldn't. But I think when the Chief Secretary, Mr. Fali Augustine, he really shared the facts, a lot of people started to see, you know, these things brought to light. So I'm really happy that there is now a book on shelves that people, you know, they could be knowledgeable about the topic on a whole. Yeah, so I really think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and while we are talking about the current issues and the development of this book, you were featured in one of those videos explaining and breaking down, you know, bite-sized versions of what the autonomy question is. And I love how you said the autonomy question. You know, what do you want, especially in these two books, the Tobago to take away? Because you mentioned earlier there's some misinformation, you know, in the space. What are some of those notable misinformation, and how do these books address those misinformation?
All right. I think one of the critical things that came out last year was the statement that Tobago would get more money if the bills were passed. Tobago right now obtains its funding because the funding for Tobago is in the Constitution. So it's guaranteed. The two bills which were before the Parliament removed the funding for Tobago from the Constitution. So that left it open to anyone with a parliamentary majority to even decide to fund the Tobago from within central government and to remove the Tobago fund. So in the revision to the Constitution, there was no funding for Tobago. In the other bill, the Tobago Self-Government Bill, there was a provision for funding and there was a provision for a higher percentage than the formula right now for the Dispute Resolution Commission. But that was a serious danger. The fact that the Tobago House of Assembly would no longer have guaranteed funding from the Constitution. There was so much misinformation in the place. At times, the discussion spoke about a fourth schedule. There was no fourth schedule I remember there was a discussion at Barcode where there was discussion about a fourth schedule in the bills. There was no fourth schedule in the bills. So I really hope that people would be able to look at the books, to read the books. And I'd be willing to do some live sessions, even though I'm not great with the technology. I sometimes influence my children to assist me to do a live.
So what are, you know, some of the significant milestones, if any? Because you mentioned that there was a bill that was passed. You want to shed some light on that, if at all? And what are there any benefits for Tobago coming from that at all?
That bill, like I indicated, had some benefits, but that bill cannot stand alone. The constitutional amendment would be needed because new institutions would be created. In the constitutional amendment bill, there was a provision for lawmaking, but there were a lot of clawback provisions also. I think the nation has to understand and have the confidence that just as Trinidad and Tobago became a new entity at independence and later republic and later at republicanism, and we are making laws. Some of them, sometimes we make bad laws, and that's why the court interprets the law. So the Tobago House of Assembly, in order to govern Tobago, has to have the latitude to make laws that will lead to the development of this island. No one is saying there won't be mistakes, but that is how we all live and learn. But that potential to make the laws, to make this island grow and develop must be there. The bill which was passed provided an improved situation for administrators, for instance, so that they would now be paid at the same level as a deputy permanent secretary. There were also provisions. There was a lot packed into that bill, but the constitutional guarantees which would allow the Tobago House of Assembly to function, they will not enjoy. Yeah, we will not be able to enjoy that.
All right. So we see that Ms. Melville has a lot of information
we have to bring
share.
It back.
We have to. I mean, it's according, some people call it the silly season, but it's the season of having these conversations, I would say. All right. So we'll be very happy to have you back on Tobago Updates. And I mean, if you have that small issue of not being able to handle the technology, Tobago Updates is always here to assist. Good platform. Yes. Right. So my last question to you before we wrap up the entire interview is, based on the books, where can we find the material? Where can we purchase them? You know, just to read through them, to get that knowledge that you told us that we should have.
At present, Kayla Loves Tobago is available at Books and Office Supplies at the price of $95. And Roadmap to Autonomy is also available there at the price of $150. Right. They are also available at my office, also at TLH Building. With time, I believe they will be more widely available, but that's where you can get them for now. I hope everyone will avail themselves of a copy, not for self-interest, but just to be able to see the facts in a snapshot.
I think these books look like textbooks, incoming textbooks.
Yes.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, so Ms. Melville, thank you so much for being with us here on Youth Wednesdays on Tobago Updates. It was a huge pleasure having you here, and you know, it'll be very nice to have you back again. All right, so to all viewers that are still with us, thank you so much for staying with us. Before we go, I just want to encourage you all to share the live, share the live, share the live. Up next, we speak about Dwayne's favorite topic, party.